Hey guys, today I want to take a look at some of the most common mistakes made at lower ranks, but also actually how to fix them as well. Obvious stuff we have covered before though, like item builds, attitude, mainly it's giving up and stuff like that, like picks or bans in the pregame. I think League players honestly would make great baseball players as well, considering how good we are at throwing this season. Really, it's mistakes that give the enemy the lead, rather than really good players. That's kind of what we want to fix a little bit today. Now, of course, as always, if you enjoy or learn something from this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I really want to do more of these videos like this now, and they're going to be even better because I've actually got this in the works for you all with Mobalytics. Once beta starts after their stress tests, I'll be getting you all access to the beta, but it's actually pretty sick. It's a tool that gives you so much information about your league games and helps you get better. This is my GPI, by the way, and you'll have one of these for yourselves too, but it's broken down into like so many in-game things into different categories to show you what you're good and bad at. Like with mine, you can see on screen, right? I'm basically a consistent team fighter who is also a gigantic pussy and likes to farm. That's pretty much a typical AD carry main. Now you can sign up to get into the beta when it starts properly. Down below, there's a link in the description, but I'm also going to be showing you more and more about this stuff when it's out as well. Right, now let's bash out this video, shall we? So number one is using your brain, which to me mainly comes down to not really thinking ahead. I bet you've all heard someone say like, oh bollocks, I had that guy if he didn't have his heal or flash or whatever, and it's like, yeah, if Zed didn't have an ultimate ability to use, it'd be a lot easier too, right? In general, it's kind of similar, right? Like people are too focused on one thing, killing somebody, staying on Baron, warding when you're getting ganked, stuff like that. But the problem is you're not really thinking about what happens next. More than anything, it's being focused on that one thing that you don't think about other stuff that could happen. And the most common ones I see, the most common examples, using your cooldowns randomly. So Thresh hooking the Baron for damage, for example, or to get into the fight. Now you don't have that cooldown if the enemy team comes onto you. Also Lucian using his dash for extra damage on a tower. Like sure, that's good damage, but now how do you escape if somebody runs at you? Another example would be tunnel vision. So you're so focused on fighting, you walk too far forward, or you aren't really looking at your health bar because you're too busy looking at theirs. Objectives especially, actually, like staying on a Baron or a Dragon, right? You're focused on killing it, but not what could happen. It's different, two different roles, I think, but it's about like what your job is, right? That's the best way of thinking at it. Like a support, for example, you're too focused on killing Baron, but you need to ward over to see people coming. Mid lane, you're focused on DPS, like killing it, but you probably should be zoning people from getting close. Or like a top laner, for example, focus on zoning, but really they're kind of needed to tank the Baron. Another massive one is getting ganked. Like you're focused on, okay, I need to get some vision because I know the jungler is here, but actually you know he's here already, so you don't really need to ward, and you're running directly at him. There are loads of things like this, but it comes down to not thinking about what might happen next. So the way we fix that then is to train yourself to think ahead, but okay, we're doing this one thing, but what could happen now? It makes the game a million times easier, trust me. If you're fighting somebody, you should think, okay, we can fight, but if an Ahri hits me with a charm, then I'm going to lose. So I know that I have to flash it then. With Dragon, you should be thinking, okay, we can do this, but if they come, I need to hook and dive in, so I'll save my cooldowns for that. Or, for example, if you're an AD carry, I have low mana, so I need to save it if we can fight when they come, so I'll just use auto attacks on Dragon instead. It's even partly like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should actually do it. Like, you shouldn't follow your heart or whatever and follow a Lee Sin Q every single time you hit it. You just have to think, what happens if I do this thing, if I use this cooldown, or if I walk forward here? That is the easiest way to kind of take your game to another level. Whenever I play with friends as well who are low ranks, or I coach people and stuff, like it's always the first thing to fix. Like I always ask them, why are you doing that? Like, why did you use that cooldown? The answer is always, I have no idea, or they focus on that one thing, but they didn't think about what happens after that. Now the next thing is you're way too focused on putting out fires rather than starting your own. I'm not sure how else to phrase that one really, so I'm going to explain it. First situation could be like your top laner is feeding super hard, obviously, but your mid and AD carry are either even or ahead. Now the problem is most times you're going to go to the top lane to try and put out that fire in the top lane rather than going to the other lanes to start your own fires there. Another situation would be your teammate is caught and you're trying to run to save them. Now the problem is you're going to end up dying yourself most of the time after jumping in to save them as well. You're thinking about saving them, but not about how you can turn it around or what will happen next. We've kind of gone from like how not to screw up a game with the first tip, how not to throw it, to how to make sure you get a lead and win with this tip. Actually, I don't know, this is probably like the biggest reason a bad game starts to get worse actually. When you're behind, most people default to trying to stop the fed person, or I guess the way we phrased it, putting out the fire, when actually it is easier to ignore that one and build your own lead somewhere else. Now part of this is mindset, because it's very normal to look at their team and see who is the most fed, but it's not that common to look at our team and think, oh, but our mid laner is fed too. You know what I mean? Like we don't really think of it like that. We don't see it that way. People get pissy at their team for feeding rather than happy that one of them is fed as well. Now the way we fix the first thing is ganking a losing lane is hard and risky, or roaming to it. They are ahead, your guy is behind. The chance of it going wrong is higher and them getting getting even further ahead. Your best bet is to either send everybody, which is kind of overkill, or nobody, to be honest. If bot lane is feeding, then win the solo lanes. If top lane is feeding, win mid and bot lane. That will balance out the game, be much easier and less risky of a play. Number 2, sometimes you've just kind of got to accept that people are dead and you have to leave them alone. But you do always need to be thinking about what comes next. What happens after they die, or can I keep them alive and turn it around? Swings like that make a massive difference in a game, and it's the best way to get back into them or really like punish the enemy team. The problem is one person getting caught can turn into 2 or 3 because you're going 1 by 1, right? That happens because the others actually don't think about what is going to happen after they jump in. Just like, oh, my teammate is caught, I need to help them. Sure, you can try and be a nice guy and do that, but think about how you're going to turn it around afterwards. Just a different way to approach the fight, I guess. So third tip is not farming enough. Just a quick one, but for real, stop trying to always fight. It honestly doesn't work, okay? You get behind, for example, and you try and fight your way back into it, or like you get ahead, but you group and then you don't farm. Now, even if the enemy team is fed, right, your best way to get back into this is to try and farm. If they don't let you, then fine, you have to fight, right? But most of the times they're going to, and it's an easy way to recover. Mid-game farming as well is 3 things. This is something a lot of people struggle with at lower ranks. Number 1, most importantly, side waves. The game becomes you push a side wave and it pushes to them. They then push it back to you, and then you go and push it back again. It's literally a game of seesaw, like one and the other. You really do need to pick up that farm though, so you need to think ahead, you need to watch the wave, you need to keep an eye on it and move there as it builds up, not when it's already at your tower. That's going to make a massive difference to start with. You could just do that. But 2 other things: farm other lanes, don't piss anybody off obviously, but if you're grouped up, try and get as much as CS as you can. Number 3, farm the jungle. If nothing is happening, go and grab some of it. Like, don't be a dick to your jungler, but most people don't take it and it's just free gold sitting there. The next thing is people being afraid to use their cooldowns. So like, you're in a fight, right? You don't think your ultimate is needed, so you don't use it, or you get hit by crowd control but don't think you'll die, so you don't flash it. The problem is cooldowns are there to be used, right? Better safe than sorry mentality is actually much better than trying to hold on to things all of the time when you're still learning the game. A few deaths or kills here actually make a really big difference in the grand scheme of a game. Now, I guess there are 3 main things actually that you need to look at for this one. So not using abilities because it's a waste of a cooldown, like thinking that way. It's like not thinking you need it to pick up the kill or whatever, and sure, sometimes it will be a waste, but then you just have to wait a little bit afterwards before you can use it again. It's not that big of a deal. It's way better habit to overkill than not get kills. Also, look at perks, right? He is like the living proof of this. He uses Orianna or Syndra ultimate basically off cooldown to get pressure. Now, sure, in the LCS is a bit different when you can abuse pressure, but it's still like using it often better than not at all. You get them low, you can free farm, you get control, you force them to base or set up future kills. Now, a bigger one is that most of you don't think about the preemptive things. Okay, some spells kind of fits into this actually. Flash mainly, but flashing late after crowd control, right after you've been hit. And I bet everybody knows that already, but you still do it. Even I do. Flashing a Thresh hook, for example, because it's going to get you killed, or an Ash arrow, that kind of thing. And sometimes you can actually think ahead with this as well. It's the easiest way to fix it. In lanes against like a Thresh, if you think to yourself, okay, if I get hooked and this cooldown is up or something, then could they kill me? If you know the answer, that is going to help you decide whether to flash it or not. The other one though that's less common is defensive spells or ultimate. So like a Thresh, for example, right? Sometimes when you get ganked, you actually want to drop the box before the fight even starts so you can get away. If you drop it after they've caught up to you, then it's probably going to be a little bit too late. It's again kind of a weird thing because it seems like a waste, right? They might not even get hit by the box. They might just turn away, but that could easily save your life because they don't catch you. Now, the best way to fix all of this is to stop worrying if you waste something. The more you use them in situations that you wouldn't normally, the faster you actually learn when you should have to and when not to. At worst, you're going to have no ultimate for a little bit of the game and have to wait, but at best, you're going to stay alive or get a kill you wouldn't have before. It's not thought about as much as other stuff. It's kind of uncommon to talk about really, but it can make a big difference between players actually. Now, the final thing is being indecisive or sitting back, and this is the biggest reason people actually throw a game. You have a lead, right? You don't really know what to do, so you just keep farming and you end up losing the game. That sounds pretty familiar, I'm sure. If nobody makes a decision, you end up doing nothing and you just kind of wait around, right? The problem with that is the enemy team get the advantage and you have to react to them, but often you don't react at all and you kind of just sit there. This is where voice comms would be so good, but unlucky, apparently the game would be even more toxic with it.
Normies. Shut up!
According to Riot, maybe one day we'll get it. Anyway, if you sit back, unless they make a mistake, you're letting them do whatever they want and they're going to get gold around the map. You know how you kind of like run around the map chasing them when they're taking towers and stuff, but you never get there in time? That is about this. You know how they sneak a Baron because they disappear, but your team doesn't walk forward to ward together or anything like that? That is this as well. It's even like when you lose to split push because they either sit around or they all rush the split pusher and the enemy team takes Baron or towers or whatever. That is also this problem. Now, the issue is, I know what a lot of you guys are going to say, you can't really force your team to do the right right thing, so it can get a bit frustrating for everybody. The thing is, like, the team that engages or whatever, in my eyes, stands more chance of winning on average, but how do we kind of fix it then if the team doesn't always listen? The first and most important step is grouping up, because no matter what happens, it's the easiest option, and it's very hard to throw a game when you're grouped. It's always trying to get your team to group number one. Really, this is the only thing you kind of need to make this work, or to see an improvement at least. If you can group, if you're together, then you can check objectives, you can fight more, and you won't get caught individually. It's not always easy, but it does help a lot. But there are a few other things that you can do. Step 2, you can try and ping more, you can talk, and you can say what you need to do. Sometimes it will not work, but it gives your team an idea in their head, which often at least helps. Step 3 is kind of taking that to another level, thinking ahead, because it's hard to react in the moment, right? But if you actually have a plan, that is easy. So for example, if a Riven shows bot lane to split push, then we all hard engage the rest of the team to make her come to us. That is one very good strategy to kind of kill a split pusher. If you say that before though, people will have more of an idea, even if they are bad, even if they don't do it necessarily, they know what they should be doing a bit more. They have a good idea. Honestly, this step is probably what will save you the most from throwing a game. I think, I know it seems really weird, but people will say they won't listen, and it is actually legit true. Sometimes people won't listen. The thing is, if you say, we need to focus this person, if you can ultimate that person, engage if they come forward like this or something, that way people know what to do in advance. Problem that people actually have is if you give them enough time, I'm sure they would figure out the right play, but in the heat of the moment, they don't know what to do, they panic and they do nothing. This is what that fixes, basically. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you learned something, definitely hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Check out Mobalytics, honestly, it's so good. But for now, I'll leave you with the robots.